afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are. We're really excited to host, Tech Mahindra is really excited to host this webinar called Smart Cities and Industrial IoT Enablement with 5G. As we know, 5G is one of the most transformative technologies of our time that is really sparking an industrial revolution 2.0 that we're all part of. So I'm really grateful for our panelists from Qualcomm, Verizon, Movandi, and our own Tech Mahindra experts to be on and really have like a great discussion as being part of the ecosystem about how 5G is really transforming the outcomes for industrial IoT and smart cities. So with that, I would like to hand it over to our host, Arunav Roy, who is the head of our CSP business, to talk a little bit more about his charter and his role and introduce our panelists. Arunav?
A very good morning, good evening, good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for joining in today for this panel discussions. And before we even start, my prayers and best wishes to all our teams and partners who are operating out of India and who have joined out of India. Hope we come out of this second wave of COVID sooner than later. Coming to the panel discussion, I am Arunav Roy. I head the communications technology providers segment at Tech Mahindra, where knowing what Tech Mahindra is known for, is very has established its leadership is on the CSP side with the telco operators, and a very critical part of that business is working closely with the technology providers. So we call that segment as communications technology providers, and we work closely with uh, key players across the chipset and devices ecosystem. We work closely with network OEMs who are focused on the telecommunications ecosystem. We work closely with unified communications and test and measurement equipment manufacturers. We work closely with IoT platform and solution providers as part of the mix. So this is an ecosystem where we work. We are trying to fuel the technology revolution across 5G, across private LTE, IoTs and IoT and smart cities. And we work in two capacities. One, we help our partners and customers through their engineering transformation journeys, through their services transformation journeys, and most importantly, when we are going into cater to CSP and enterprise needs, we help them with their integration needs as part of the ecosystem play that we have. uh, I would like to thank and welcome our panelists for this discussion today. When we were discussing on what would be a very interesting way to look at the opportunities and the problems that exist on the private LTE, 5G, and IoT side, we thought, why don't we bring in industry leaders who represent various parts of this value chain, right from the company which has been leading and has demonstrated significant leadership on the 5G chipset side, and the growth which they have been experiencing over the last couple of years on the IoT and smart city side. And Sanjeet from Qualcomm is joining us for that to represent that view. Then we wanted to bring in a disruptive technology player who has been leading the charge on the millimeter wave with their products and solutions. And we have Craig joining us from Movandi as part of that, ecosystem view. And then, to stitch it all together, the gateway into the enterprises and the telcos and the consumers has been leading technology and service provider companies. And we have Ahmed joining us from Verizon to share his perspective on what they're doing on 5G connected cars and private LTE side. And we have our very own Manish Mangal, who is the CTO of our network services business, who will bring in his perspective on how we as a system integrator are bringing the technology provider ecosystem together and catering to the use cases which are there from a service provider and the enterprise ecosystem. So I would like to hand it over to Sanjeet for a formal introduction from his end, and also to give a little bit of a view on what his role is towards this 5G ecosystem.
Thank you, Arunav. A very good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the participants. My name is Sanjeet Pandit, and I'm responsible for smart cities and smart connected spaces here at Qualcomm Technologies, based out of San Diego, California. Qualcomm is the leader in this 5G revolution. We were the first to the market, and we will be in almost all, any other technologies that have to come down the line. As far as my role is concerned and our team is concerned, we are a part of the IoT BU, the business unit, and I'm responsible for digitization and IoT as a service across multiple verticals. So there are two paths to our business. One is smart cities, and second is smart connected spaces. Smart cities, pretty self-explanatory. Cities come out with RFP, we work with them. Smart connected spaces is everything that falls outside the jurisdiction of the city. Smart port, smart airport, smart campus, warehousing, water, anything that requires digitization. So you must be wondering, well, wait a minute. So what do? You take a chip and go to the mayor? No, we don't. We take a complete end-to-end solution, and we go there with right from the implementation, dashboarding, analytics, apps, a full end-to-end command and control center. So we are working as the master system integrator, in this case, deploying digitization across every industry. Thanks, Rana.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sanjeet, for this introduction. I would hand it over to Craig now to introduce himself and Movandi and what they are trying to do in this space.
I'm Craig Ochikubo from Movandi Corporation. I run the product marketing here at Movandi. Movandi is really a leading provider in millimeter wave technology. We design and develop deep technology for 5G as well as beyond 5G. And we address a number of different markets in that segment. One of the key areas, for example, we are really looking at solving a lot of the challenges associated with using millimeter wave across a wide range of use cases. Our technology is applicable from everything from automotive to IoT to smart cities to device and infrastructure deployments. And we've done a lot of work, for example, with Verizon. That's a very strong leader in this space. We've been working with them for a number of years. They've made a number of announcements with some of our technology that we've gone out with. And really the goal there has been to enable the deployment and enable the coverage and enable the ease of use for end users in getting access to these high performance networks.
Thank you, Greg. I'd like to turn it over to Ahmed to introduce himself and his role at Verizon.
Ahmed Abdeldayem. I work on the public sector side on Verizon, so we're part of Verizon Business Group, and within our group, we focus on smart city products for public sector. So our main primary customers is cities and DOTs. We work at both city, state, and county level, also at the federal level. Our group focuses on transportation and education applications for smart cities. So my own group looks at using the core technology from Verizon, so Verizon network, 5G and 4G, and also on the edge for smart city applications, and adding the above the network service component on top of what we can give to the city. So we don't just focus on the network connectivity to the city or the DOT. We're trying to provide the added value services in terms of transportation analytics, bringing together a number of data sources or streams that come from Verizon and outside Verizon to bring that value to our customers at the scale they are looking for. We focus also on some education products. So we're in the AR, VR market, and we have some products that will be announced later this year. And we also focus on the public safety space. We have products on for roadway lighting as well and parking. So anything that touches smart city above the network is our core focus, and we try to leverage our network and edge computing to support a lot of those use cases.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ahmed, for the introduction. Now I would like to invite Manish to share his view on his role and what we are trying to do as a system integrator on the 5G side.
Thank you, Arunav. Thank you, Vishal. And thank you all the panelists. One of the, our role actually is very simple. We are seeing the industry go through the extreme level of complexity, whether you talk about any of the network business or whether you talk about the enterprises. So the role that I hold at Tech Mahindra as the CTO for the network services business, our objective in life is to help various vertical industries who are our customers adopt the network in a way that it aligns with their vision of making their entire business from an end-to-end perspective a transformative digital journey. So we work with them in terms of how to integrate with the ecosystem partners like all of you and create a transformation journeys, create a solution enablement for them that really achieves their objective of highest level of automation that they've been trying to get to. So looking forward to this panel. I'm sure we're going to have an exciting session.
Thank you, Manish. Vishal, why don't we get
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Arunav, for hosting this, and thank you for this phenomenal panel. So we're going to enter the Q&A session, and for the participants, you are on mute, but please feel free to use the chat button to ask us any questions, and we will have the last 15 minutes to address your questions. So without further ado, as I said in the beginning, we've got a wide range of folks who are attending this webinar, people who are in our cloud services, our ERP services, all the way to the folks who work on marketing side of things at Tech Mahindra, given how big we are, and we've got a lot of our customers too in the different side of things. So, I would like to demystify what 5G is to a certain extent for our audience. I know we breathe and live this thing, so we know what it is. So maybe I will tee off the first question to Sanjeet at Qualcomm. Given that Qualcomm is the undisputed leader right now in the 5G chipset RF side of things, can you tell us why 5G is so exciting and why it's really enabling this industrial revolution? Because when people think about 5G, they think, oh, you know what, I'm going to be able to download my Netflix movie faster. It's all about data rates, but it's a lot more than just data rates. So would love to understand in layman's terms, why is 5G have this transformational effect?
Thank you. We surely would like to have users download the Netflix things faster as well. That's a very important use case for us, because that means the people will have more devices, and that means more chipset sales. So we love that. So there's no question about that. As far as 5G is concerned, we have seen larger adoption of 5G in the industry than when we moved from 3G to 4G. The adoption of 5G has been much more rapid, but the point that is important to understand is, 5G is going to touch multiple facets of life. Well, talking from an IoT perspective, anything with ultra low latency, high reliability use cases would be the first to kind of go off the bat. In public sector enterprises, you would see a lot of cameras, a lot of nanosecond requirements in terms of automotive industry, in terms of vision intelligence. All those cases amalgamated into a 5G infrastructure. Smart manufacturing and precision, locationing would be also a very important use case. There's a lot of power saving features that have been implemented, like wake up signals and others that are implemented in Release 16 right now. Release 17 has been worked on. So I think all in all, it's very difficult to say that is there one particular use case that can change the industry at all. No, I think it's more of a rendered outcome. You got to understand the workflow, the digitization, and you got to apply pieces of which would then improve the efficiency, and most important, would improve the overall productivity across every vertical. May it be manufacturing, may it be anything of that sort. So I think all in all, 5G is going to cut across multiple domains. The consumers will obviously see faster data rates, and we'll be able to do stuff at a much faster pace. When 3G came, we didn't realize how the modems, and I used to have all those modems connecting to your laptops. Then 4G came, that went away. Things were taken for granted in multiple things. And now in 5G, you will see that across not only consumer aspects, but more of industrial, drones, unmanned vehicles, autonomous driving, multiple use cases will come through. So It's a matter of time. They're evolving in terms of how they get implemented. Infrastructure is in place right now in some cases. In some cases, there'll be private LTE networks that will be coming in, private 5G networks that will be going in later. So I think all in all, the time is right for taking this forward.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sanjeet, for that insight. So my next question is to Ahmed at Verizon. So Ahmed, Verizon came out with one of my favorite commercials, which had this guy walking around and saying, "Can you hear me now?" Right? It was like one of the most iconic commercials of our time. So can you tell me where we are with the 5G deployments kind of globally and here in the US? I know Korea and China like really were off the barn really quickly, but the US has done a very good job with catching up and having pretty good nationwide coverage. So we'd love to get your perspective on where we are with the 5G in terms of 5G rollout.
So for Verizon, the 5G rollout is at the heart of what we're doing, and it's the top priority for the company. So we have a very aggressive plans on going about that. Our plans is we have more than offering up to 1 gigabyte per second peak speeds to 250 million people by 2024. And we're investing, I would say, $10 billion to kind of get the network over that course over the next 3 years. We're also planning on offering in-home broadband service to about 50 million households by 2024, and we'll be covering more than 41% of the entire US population by that time. So I know there have been a slowdown a little bit, and there were a few factors affecting that. So think about the FCC ruling and getting the bands that are needed auctioned earlier this year. So we've been delayed on that. If you compare to other countries around the world, this had happened a longer time ago. So you've seen them kind of picking up speed a lot more than the US, and now we're catching up pretty quickly. There were also some other issues like the whole issues with China and dealing with Huawei and geopolitical tensions and whatnot that forced a lot of the cell providers to look into other sources for procuring equipment. But all that is beyond us now, and like I said, the plan is moving as aggressive as it could be nationwide, and we're hoping to achieve that in the next couple of years. So you're going to see a lot more services nationwide available for 5G between now and the next 2 years, and we have a very detailed plan explaining the steps that we're taking every year to get to that point.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you for the update. My next question is to Craig at Movandi. So Craig, I think there's a lot of there's hype and then there's reality when it comes to 5G, right? So we talk about all these great outcomes in terms of robotic surgery, remote surgery, completely automated, autonomous vehicles. So can you tell us a little bit about what has to happen from like sort of the 100 megabits per second to millimeter wave? What's the difference, and how do we cross that bridge to get to these use cases in terms of millimeter wave and what Movandi is doing to enable that?
Right. I mean, if you just look across that breadth of applications that Ahmed and Sanjeet talked about, we are going to outstrip what is supported by the current existing bandwidth at sub-6 frequencies. And so you have to utilize these higher band frequencies to enable better performance, lower latencies, and really enough capacity to support the number of users you want to support, whether it's in a factory with a number of sensors, whether it's in a private network that's for some particular campus, whether it's in a municipality that high density of users within that space. So unlocking that millimeter wave spectrum and providing it in a seamless fashion to users is really key. And there are definitely physical constraints with millimeter wave, and that's kind of where Movandi has really focused our efforts on providing elegant solutions in the near term that are fully 3GPP compliant, fully meet all the latency requirements of the network, and become seamless to the end users so that they can walk in with a UE device, whether it's a Qualcomm handset or any type of sensor device, and have it interoperate uniformly across that platform. That to me is going to be really important, because to an end user, to whether it's a CFO putting in his factory system and calling on Tech Mahindra to put it together, they don't care. They don't care about the technology that's underlying it. They want to see it work. They want to see the performance met, and they want to see the TCO at a level that makes it much more advantageous to go wireless than to do all the wiring and slow infrastructure that they're currently using today. So that really is, I think, a key part of taking it to the next step.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. So my next question is to Manish from Tech Mahindra. So Manish, as our CTO on the network services side, I know you have some battle scars in terms of implementing these technologies from 3G all the way to 5G. So can you tell us about why is the challenge? Why is the integration challenge so big and so great in 5G? What some of the challenges are, and honestly, what some of the opportunities are in terms of Open RAN and how this network is you're able to really plug and play things faster as well. So maybe your perspective on sort of the rollout and the integration would be great. And you're muted, by the way. You're muted. Thank you.
So I think you're talking about 5G. With every G, there is always a benefit that comes, right? Whether we went from 2G to 3G or 3G to 4G. But the reason why everyone is so excited about 5G is because it's not just another G that is coming into the infrastructure, right? Yes, of course, we are getting better speeds. Yes, of course, we are getting better latency. And yes, of course, we are able to get a higher density of the devices that can be supported on the same amount of spectrum or the same carrier. All those benefits that we always expect from a advancement of a access technology from 3G, 4G now to 5G is all available. But there are two more things that 5G is doing very significantly, right? One is it is really creating a entire disruption of the ecosystem of how the networks are designed and built and operated. So the fundamental premise of 5G is really to break the access, break the core and get it into a disaggregated kind of an architecture so that the innovation becomes a lot more easy to do. And it's not locked in as a end-to-end vertically integrated solution. And hence, Movandis of the world can really, take advantage of this, innovate in the space where that they're really good at, and create a much improved overall solution for the industry. And the second thing it's also doing, which is fundamentally different, and we don't often talk about, is really the edge compute part of it, which is we are also, while we are vertically distributing and splitting the things apart from the network point of view, we are also moving the storage and the compute capability closer and closer to the edge. And when you take these three things together, is where two things happen. One is for an enterprise segment, it opens up a whole new opportunity, right? Because now this network can be cloudified and it can be automated to the level it reduces the barrier of entry for an enterprise to adopt this technology, right? Enterprises, if whether it's a public sector vertical or whether it's a manufacturing or healthcare or oil or gas mining, port, you pick it, they're all used to working with Wi-Fi as a technology, right? Which is it's a combination, it's a complementary technology, but now this 5G enables them to actually bring in at a much lower barrier and lower cost to be able to adopt that. And also horizontally move the processing closer to them, that makes their use cases work better. And why all these benefits open up, the reason why we are also playing our role into this ecosystem is because more you disaggregate to innovate, equally important it is to put it all together back in a way that it works as a system. Hence, we have been very focused on creating what we call as a continuous integration, so that we look at the business of saying, how do we integrate this ever increasing complexity in a technology in a way that it enables the innovation to happen at a faster pace, but at the same time, it doesn't disrupt the way end users are using the technology and are able to really achieve the performance and the quality. So that's where we play a role.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much, Manish. So that's you said the two golden words, edge compute. So I think that's a good segue into our second round, where we talk about sort of what are the outcomes that 5G give us specifically in the smart city and industrial IoT space. So Ahmed, I would like to start with you in this round and ask you, specifically when you look at what Verizon is doing, especially with the whole MEC, the mobile edge compute side of things. Can you tell us a little bit about what MEC is and how that translates to some of the transportation challenges that you're solving and the use cases that are above the network?
So a lot of the MIG 5G is at the heart of everything that we're working on today for future connected and autonomous vehicle. So we're engaged with both the US DOT and some local and state government agencies, a lot of the system integrators around the country, as well as top-notch universities around the country that are interested in this. So a number of pilots going on in the East Coast and in different places in the country. I can mention M-City in Michigan, one of them. We're very aggressive there and pursuing pilot work around connected and autonomous vehicles. We're also active in Lake Nona in Florida. And we actually just signed a contract last year with Contra Costa Transportation Authority here in the Bay Area, funded by a US DOT grant with a number of very key technological players and car manufacturers like Nissan to look at connected autonomous vehicle pilots and use cases to using 5G MEC. To explain a little bit more, what we're really focusing on is mainly two key benefits, and those will have sub-benefits to them. The first one is improving safety at intersections and improving, that's both for the vehicle and the pedestrians, using our roads. And a shocking number that every year in this country, about 40,000 people die, not just get injured, just die. And a lot of those people, 60% of them are dying at intersections because they crossed the road the wrong way, or there was some technological error, the signal timing didn't work the way it should be working, there was visibility issues and whatnot. And these are the scenarios we're looking on. So we're looking to enable for the very far, I wouldn't say very far, for the maybe a longer term future, enabling autonomous vehicle use cases. So enabling maybe cars to make a left turn unguided without a driver. So that's using a camera maybe at the intersection, information coming from the connected and autonomous car, and taking all that information to a Mac, doing the needed analysis, and then providing a framework for decision making. All that is happening in sub-second to allow that type of movement. In the near future, and this is some stuff that's is going to be rolled out soon, is kind of driving how, if we have a camera at an intersection, or if we have radar and other types of technology, if we detect a pedestrian, can we exchange safety messages based on that camera seeing a vehicle coming? Maybe the vehicle with the technology that's in that vehicle cannot see the pedestrian. It's in a blind spot. The pedestrian can see the vehicle. Can we kind of, based on those views, do the needed analysis and inform the pedestrian to slow down, or maybe extend the green light for a driver that has no intention of stopping at the red light, and protect the other drivers that are driving in conflicting direction, or that pedestrian that was planning on crossing the road. So these are some of the tests that's going on right now with a lot of the automakers powering safety. Also, we're looking at efficiency. So you have data from the infrastructure, you have data from the vehicle, you can drive optimal speed, you can coordinate your signal timing better, and all that will drive travel time better, will make the driver's experience a lot more in line with expectation, and you can rely on the network and don't have that kind of uncertainty. And as a sub-product, that all lowers the emissions that's coming from vehicles, and that falls very well with the aggressive plans that were just announced for lowering the U.S. trying to cut down by 50% its gas emission, I think by what, 2030 or 2035? So all that is supporting in this. That's on the transportation side.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So real life use cases and saving lives using 5G. That's amazing. So my next question is to you, Sanjeet. I think Qualcomm has always been sort of an end-to-end solution provider, and has really in the space of IoT, it has really transformed that. So can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing with IoT as a service and enabling a few verticals to be successful and get to market faster?
Sure. Thanks a lot. In December, we announced the Qualcomm IoT Services Suite. Our IoT Services Suite is basically having a smart solution right out of the box across multiple verticals, may it be intelligent traffic management, right to the point of smart warehousing, to smart water, to whatever required in terms of verticals. We will be launching, by the end of the year, you will see about 30 verticals. We have 14 of them launched. We'll have 30 verticals, and these verticals are outside smart city. So forget about smart city. Smart city is only one piece of it. Within the smart connected spaces, right now we are doing a pilot, a huge pilot, where and a pilot normally is considered free, but this is a paid pilot to us in Thailand for smart poultry farming. Now, Qualcomm is not an expert in poultry farming. That's not our business, but we have put together digitized the entire NB-IoT sensors, the AI cameras, everything to kind of come together with dashboards to deliver a smart end-to-end, livestock or poultry farming as a service. Obviously, we're working with multiple cities. We do a lot of autonomous driving as CV2X, as we are the leader in that. Multiple car companies have announced partnerships with us, and vice versa. And it's important for the industry to know that we have moved way above the stack. We have cracked the code in the smart city space. We are the leaders, absolute leaders in deployment of smart cities and smart city solutions across the board. And it's beyond just smart cities. As I said, the IoT Services Suite, if you need a smart warehouse, it doesn't need a smart mall, a smart retail outlet. You need a complete deck-to-dock logistic distribution. We do that all. And when I say we do that all, it includes installation, commissioning, integration, API integration, dashboards, AMC, end-to-end. So obviously, we're not going to go and compete with Tech Mahindra. They're our friends, but at the end of the day, we work with them closely on this. So,
great. And also, can you, 2 years ago, I attended your first the Smart City Accelerator program that you had. You had like a full house. You filled out the entire auditorium. It was one of the best, very well organized Smart City Accelerator program. Can you tell us what your objective was there and where that program is today? Because it seems like a very unique way to bring all the ecosystem players together.
So the Smart City Accelerator program, and when I kicked off this practice initially, it was very hard, IoT being fragmented and this being even more fragmented. It was very hard to understand who does what in this space. So what we did was we kicked off something which is the first in the industry of that kind. We kicked off a Smart City Accelerator program, which is nothing but, sorry for the analogy, but nothing but a match.com of smart cities. That's what it is. Everybody in the zoo, everybody, right from a bucket truck vendor to a app developer to somebody who can replace manhole covers or connected, devices to the point that anybody who comes in and does dashboarding to AI cameras, everyone's under one roof. Cities come to this, municipalities come to this website. Verizon is a part of it. Tech Mahindra is a part of it, So we bring in the best of the breed. We ensure that everybody meets everybody, and we kind of foster the ecosystem, interactive discussions, and make sure that there's one repository or one stop shop for all smart city requirements. So that's what it is, and we have 500 plus members now, and right from IBM to Hitachi to you name it, they're part of it.
Yep, absolutely. Great. Thank you. So Craig, awesome outcomes. We're going to save lives at the intersection. We're going to have autonomous vehicles. But what is Movandi doing in, really solving these specific use cases where we will really have low latency and a very, very highly reliable network, be it a private network or a public network? But what is your Movandi solution in this space, and how are you working with someone like a Verizon and also utilizing chipsets from someone like Qualcomm?
Right. So, Movandi has been very active in mobility, as well as autonomous vehicles, as well as kind of the smart city, and helping that infrastructure address mobility and autonomous vehicles. We've done extensive amount of testing with our repeater extender platforms, showing that it gives a 10x improvement in terms of range, in terms of data rate that's achievable over that range, and really demonstrated that capability in real world applications. And obviously, it's really easy because all around us are Verizon networks that we can do this testing. We have qualified products at Verizon that we can take in the field and apply in these various use cases and try it in different scenarios. And it's really shown that you can achieve much greater distances, much more robust communication with millimeter wave performance. And in these applications, autonomous vehicles have a lot of data that needs to go both ways. That data, as time goes on, becomes more and more, for lack of a better term, stale, right? If you could get it off in nanoseconds, it has a huge amount of value, and it diminishes exponentially over time. And by providing that robust network, extended as greatly as possible with our technology, that gives the opportunity to get some of this data up into the cloud, up into the AI network, up into the real-time processing network, and then be able to bring it back down and react upon it, act upon it, and do a real-world application. And so, that testing and showing that we can achieve that is really, what a lot of this is about.
Yeah, absolutely. Great, thank you. So Manish, clearly the challenge with 4G is the end-to-end integration, right, of the network and the application. So given our experience, we've been a leader in integrating 4G private networks. So given our experiences there, how have you been working with carriers and service providers to kind of solve this integration challenges? What are the 2 or 3 things that Tech Mahindra has done to really help solve this problem?
Sounds great. So, like we said, it takes a village to raise a child, right? And similarly, in this parlance, it takes an ecosystem to bring it all together. So fundamentally, when I look at it from a carrier point of view, right, the carriers have a clear vision and ambition and mission, I would call it, to make the network as a platform, right, and make network more of as a software-centric platform that allows innovation to come in from a software providers very rapidly. At the same time, being able to drop the cost of the operations of the network to the point where all of that value can be created towards the consumers and the enterprise users, right? And our role is as a transformational partner for them is to enable that, right? And that's where we work on a variety of our integration solutions that brings in automation, that brings in integration challenges to be solved with a variety of different technology providers who are serving the carrier community. Then when we look at the sort of a enterprise segment in itself, like what we're talking about smart cities or what we're talking about manufacturing, right? I think while we talk about the use cases today, and there are plenty of them today that are getting traction in the market, but really we are still at the very, at the cusp of just testing few things out. I fast forward 5 years and say that in 5 years, we would have solved 2 fundamental things, right? We would have brought the analytics and data to be so much closer to the enterprise's environment for them to make all sorts of decisions. And hence the use cases on top of it can be evolved, innovated on almost on a daily basis, right? And that's where we want to be. So what we are working effectively is with partners like Qualcomm and with technology partners like Movandi is really to build that end-to-end solution that is built on that principle of cloud native automation and the way that we would have designed it if we were designing a greenfield hyperscale network. And that's the role that we play. We are kind of a glue that binds things together and make ideas to reality by doing what Sanjeet was saying in the space of smart cities, where doing the entire life cycle of planning, design, installation, commissioning, managing, and operating, and doing the testing and technology integration from a top to bottom.
Fantastic. No, thank you. Thank you very much. So so my final round, I'm going to ask a common question to each and every one of the panelists, and then we're going to go to we've got almost 150 attendees who are online, so they have a bunch of questions. So we'll reserve the last 10 minutes to do that. So I think we're fortunate to have sort of the end-to-end ecosystem players here, all the way from the chipset to the network service provider. So just in terms of what do you think are sort of the top one or two challenges in the 5G deployment and getting to these outcomes that you see that are facing your industry, that you would like to see resolved in the next 6 months? Whether it's a challenge on the device side, on the network side, or the integration side. So I would love to get, as industry leaders, your perspective on what those are. So maybe, Craig, I'll start with you. Just sort of the top 2 or 3 things that we together need to solve.
Yeah. So I mean, what we're seeing is that there's a lot of it's such a broad range of applications. If you say private networks, it means a lot of things to a lot of different people, and there's a very wide range of applications, of use cases, which in a sense demands a high degree of modularity of that core technology that's being applied to it. And that's kind of where we've sort of taken our solutions and made them highly modular, supporting everything from an ORAN network all the way to a fully integrated small cell, to the repeater solutions that we have, to very modular UEs. Be able to tailor it to different users, have a company like Tech Mahindra be able to take those solutions and integrate them into the end product that would be deployed at a particular facility or a particular campus or set of campuses. That I see is a big challenge, but also an area where we're trying to focus on, and where Movandi is really looking to differentiate with the 5G equipment that's being put out in the market today.
Okay, great, thank you, Sanjeet.
I think challenges are aplenty. This pandemic has taught the cities to be more sustainable. Digitization is occurring quick. The biggest issue still remains funding. Who funds these cities? Where does this money come from? Public-private partner? How do you get this? The grants are not going to always, carry forward and take it forward. So companies need money. These things require, sustainable deployment, and it requires monetization. So this monetization aspect has to be cracked. We have cracked multiple of those. I think the other thing is, I personally feel, and I can say it today on this panel, millimeter wave is going to be the fiber of the future. That's it. There's no question about that. Millimeter wave is going to take over and be the fiber of the future. And I think for that, there has to be a very solid planning with the city officials, with the ecosystem partners. And the other challenges is legacy infrastructure. You cannot go in a city and say, hey, 2012, you install these lights, I have a brighter light. It's got to have some value, much more than that you come in and replace. It's hard to replace legacy infrastructure. You got to have a regression testing. You got to go in for that. So all in all, funding, adoption of new technology, understanding the use cases better, and respecting the legacy infrastructure and taking it along are the key things that we got to take forward.
Absolutely. Great. Ahmed, I will end with you on this question. Like, what are the top 2 or 3 challenges from a Verizon perspective that you see, and how we can collectively work to solve it?
Yep, I think, to piggyback on Sanjeet's comments, I think the struggle is with having stable, reliable funding for a lot of these projects, and kind of trying to change the cities and the DOT's mentalities of how to procure these services. Their models were very based on treating it as a capital expense, where they own the system and they go through a long RFP cycle and kind of purchase an equipment or a system that may take a year or 2 to kind of get things in place. And the technology had already become obsolete, because every day we wake up, something new comes in, and it's moving pretty fast. So cities need to move more into the OpEx part, get out of the ownership type of framework and focus on the mission, what they are trying to do to help their citizens, and leave that to tech companies, cell phone operators, system integrators, who can provide the service, operate it, maintain it, upgrade it, because that's their core business and that's their core value. So that's a big need, but this is happening very slowly, and that needs to come at the top. I think To dive a little bit deeper on the technical side, I think one of the biggest challenges, honestly, that this whole ecosystem have been very segmented for a long time, and now we're coming up with these use cases that require somebody who's driving in Maine to drive in San Diego, see the same type of specs and the type of work. So data models, data standard specifications are very different between the different providers, and somebody needs to come in and kind of establish a schema or a standard where all the data needs to fit in. And that's where we see ourselves and with other big players on this panel kind of playing that role to kind of make sure that this data schema or standard exists. And finally, at the end side of it, obviously security and liability and all the other issues and the fail-safe moves. Like if you start talking about saving people's lives at intersections and controlling signals, you need to have the right framework to kind of operate, and what happens when there is an issue, because who's gonna be liable? What is the fail-safe for the camera not working or somebody hacking into a system? And these are all discussions and that are happening at every level in every company to kind of figure that out, and also with the government. So these will be the top three I can think of.
And I think.
All right, thank you.
Vishal, one point I did want to mention. Sorry about that. I'll take another 30 seconds. We have to take out the complexity out of the deployment. You have to do a lot of pre-integrated solutions, and that's what the Qualcomm IoT Services Suite does. If you go in for a warehouse, you will see that 70 to 80% of our smart warehouse is already built in, right from the sensors, integration, dashboards, everything out of the box, including the Android and the iOS app, which requires just very basic modification. You got to take that complexity out of the equation, and you have to make it ease of deployment for the cities. If not, you're never going to get there. That's number one. Number two, you will see a lot of funds coming in for the cities with this new administration, at least in the US and worldwide. And the cities will think differently. Instead of repairing the roads or building new pavements, they will divide the funds. They will put some funds in ICT, and they'll also keep the funds on the infrastructure side. Where earlier, it was all important to make sure that water sanitization, that's important, no doubt, but there will be some allocation towards ICT going forward. Thanks.
Excellent. Actually, this brings me to a question which comes in my mind. What has happened to all of us in the last year and a half since COVID has hit us? I see one trend that the office real estate space, corporate real estate space has gotten impacted significantly. However, the residential real estate space, at least in the US, has seen a spike. What do you, as per and it's an open question to all of you, but Sanjeet, we can start from you. What do you see this last 1.5 years have done to us? Has it fast-tracked some of the deployments on the 5G side as a result of what's happening, the way we are consuming network from our residential premises? Or you think it has been a bummer overall on the LTE on the 5G for enterprise player?
I think the life has changed for everybody, for kids, for schools, everything has changed tremendously. And I think the only thing I can tell you is adoption of technology. This pandemic has really played a catalyst in terms of adoption of technology across multiple sectors. My mother, who was not a very tech savvy, is able to now do a lot of things, just because everybody was forced in this situation. Kindergarten kids can log on and navigate laptops much faster than what they were a year and a half ago. Data consumption has gone up. There were no laptops available. The cameras were not available. You try to order, people started going out and taking walks. Even physically, things started improving. You could always walk when there was no pandemic, but all of a sudden you thought there was time, and you said this is important. So you see families going out to walks together. So there was a socioeconomic impact, sure, which was not good for the industry and for the businesses. But there was a lot of other things that acted as early adoptions and acted as a catalyst. So yes, all in all, I think this has accelerated the adoption of technology across multiple domains.
Great. So I'm going to work in some other audience questions as well, because it looks like we've covered a lot of the audience questions through the panel. But maybe, Craig, I'll give this audience question to you. Of course, this is something that's very near and dear to us, is healthcare, right? And how does 5G millimeter wave enables sort of we talked about smart cities, but there's this whole smart spaces, as Sanjeet said. How does 5G millimeter wave enable a better healthcare system for us and a better, more smarter hospital?
Right, and I think there's two pieces to it. One is healthcare is not necessarily going to be isolated to healthcare facilities, right? And
Yep.
to the earlier question, what does the pandemic cause? It caused a great shift in terms of or movement of the data rate requirements, and so providing robust coverage now in urban areas, but also bringing it back into other residential areas and providing robust coverage where there's not been an easy way to do it except with wireless. Has been a big part. I mean, we're looking at ways to solve that exact issue. We're looking at ways that we can provide our technology to, bend that millimeter wave down the street to go get it into the residential areas too. We're working with some operators that, the coverage requirement is like a lollipop. It's a long little thread, and then there's a big bucket of users, and it's kind of, how do you provide that coverage to those users, right? And I think that is one piece of it. And then I think the other piece of it, which is, even I have that same thing, which is, the COVID has caused the use cases to evolve so far. Video conferencing, teleconferencing, medical teleconferencing didn't exist before COVID, and the medical community was afraid of it. Now they embrace it, right? And it's just evolving at a frenetic pace. And being able to provide that mobility and that robust connection to the people that are providing it. I have a lot of friends that are doctors that are providing that in different environments, from home to be able to service their patients. So there's this basic movement of the bandwidth, and how do we provide that? How do we enable that? And that's one area that I believe if we can accelerate, using simpler ways and lower cost ways to deploy the technology, that becomes a big advantage to whether it's healthcare, whether it's education, whether it's any of the use cases associated with 5G.
That's true. That's great. So Ahmed, maybe this next question from the audience is more appropriate for you, given your experience with transportation and smart cities. So the question is, with the pandemic and the last 12 months, have you seen governments focus more on smart cities and what 5G can do for them? How has that accelerated their spending and their budget towards really making this a reality?
So right when the pandemic hit, we've had a lot of requests and discussions with a lot of government agencies trying to see, for example, if we can tap to the network data and other data sources that we have to understand the effect of COVID on the people's movement patterns and where people are sheltering in the first few months. So this was one big question for them. Are we going to still see this big dip in terms of people on the road or not? And some of that touched on issues with data privacy and security, and can we actually tap into that data and look into some of this? There have been some research. There are issues in there that kind of everybody opened their eyes to when this happened. How can we tap into this type of data without invoking on anybody's privacy or causing any concerns in that part? I think a lot of the agencies have been trying to not just because of COVID, because of a lot of things that are happening, moving into electrical cars and whatnot. So how are we going to replace the gas tax for a lot of the DOTs and a lot of the cities? This money used to fund all of their projects. Now, can we look into other technologies that concentrate on like vehicles might travel, how much you use the road, and based on that, you're going to be charged a fee and taxed that way. And that all needs to be powered by good infrastructure. 5G is at the heart of this because imagine the number of data and the MEC technology as well. So a lot of new use cases are being opened up. And again, it's all to a lot of these agencies about management of the network rather than building, because building has failed again and again and again. You spend a lot of money and then you add a lane, and then 2 years later, oops, I need to add a more lane because people magically fill that lane up. So what can we do to manage our network better and optimize the performance?
All right. No, thank you. So, Manish, I'll probably end the last audience question with you. So, obviously 5G network rollout has a lot of opportunity, but a lot of challenges. So, in terms of helping the customers, what are the sort of key areas that excite you and, that you see that we're really able, Tech Mahindra is able to help out with to make this a reality?
Absolutely. I think it's completely unsaid at this point of time that there is a significant amount of interest. In the last 12 months, the number of customer conversations that we have had where there is a serious interest about adoption of 5G and adoption of MEC and how that can enable a variety of different things for the enterprises has been unbelievable. It's very clearly understood because we are part of such a large enterprise digital transformation journey. It's very clearly understood from most of the CIOs that I speak to that they see this as a part of their journey, right? They said earlier that we need the applications which are all on-prem to be moved to the cloud because that gives them the flexibility, that gives them the scalability, that gives them the reliability and everything that required for that. They move to the next stage of making the network more flexible to enable the access to those applications which are on the cloud through SD-WAN transformations. Now they're clearly saying is that a lot of my AR, VR, high bandwidth related applications that require me to make my digital operations better, I need to bring some of these compute capability closer to me. And I want to build better reliability into my operations network, particularly the OT part of it, where I'm putting my mission critical businesses, and I want to bring it more reliability to it through a private network. So the vision is very clear in terms of what they want to do. Their biggest challenge that I see is in two categories. One is they don't have the expertise to maintain, operate, design, do all the work that's required for a private network per se. Wi-Fi is easier for them. They have enough technicians to go in and put it up and then it works seamlessly. With whether it's a private LTE and evolving into 5G, there is a lot more work required for them. So there is one challenge there that they need to address. And the second thing is the day-to-day maintenance part of it, which is even if I do it, my barrier to entry, let's say we reduce it, and by getting the infrastructure up and there, how do I operate it? And I think that's the challenges that I see, and that's where I see we are all evolving towards and supporting the barrier to entry to go significantly down. They should be able to just treat it as another Wi-Fi network.
Great. Thank you, Manish. So I think with that, I would like to give it back to our host, Arunav, to give us his final thoughts. I really enjoyed talking to the panel. Thank you for your time. So Arunav, if you want to maybe close the session out with a few final thoughts.
Sure. No, thank you so much, Vishal, for moderating this session. Thank you. Big thanks to all the panelists, Sanjeet, starting with you on your insights on how Qualcomm is playing not just a technology provider role, but also an integrator role in the smart cities and IoT ecosystem. Of course, working with SIs like Tech Mahindra and the ecosystem which you have been able to stitch together. Very insightful. Thank you for all the insights on how you have been able to drive through the growth over the last couple of years on this one. Ahmed, your insights around connected cars, how autonomous vehicles are going to be more and more in play, and how Verizon is fueling that ecosystem was very, very insightful. Thank you so much once again. And all the use cases that you talked about is something which we all are trying to relate with, and how this would eventually be consumed. We talk about 5G, but we often leave it at the network level. But all the use cases which you talked about is where we see how the 5G infrastructure getting actually consumed. So thank you so much for all your insights. Craig, truly appreciate all the work that is happening, which Movandi is leading. I think you are in a place which is going to change or disrupt the ecosystem in a big way. Very insightful data points around how you are pivoting the millimeter wave technology on catering to the residential use cases, and how you are able to create that a model which is going to create a sustainable consumption of the 5G infrastructure which is going to put out together. And thank you, Manish, always for your insights on how we can be a value adding player, and we can be a cutting edge thought leader in this space, on not just helping the network players stitch together the network infrastructure, their technology products, their roadmaps, but also how do we come in and help some of these use cases be actually deployed in the marketplace. So thank you once again for all your insights and thought leadership. Once again, a big thanks to all the panelists, Vishal, to you for moderating the session, the team for putting together a fantastic event and hosting this, Aditya, Sunil, Ishita, and to all our audience, thank you so much for being, for attending the session and asking all the questions, and hope this was very insightful for all of you. Thank you once again, and look forward to talking to you, all of you, very soon. Stay safe, stay home, take care.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, guys. Thank you very much.